Hi, welcome to our regular Thursday live. Um, really pleased to have you join us. And just to introduce myself, my name's Yoni Ejo, and I'm a social worker and an adopted person, and also an adopter of two children. And I'll ask Keely to introduce herself.
Hi, folks. Nice to see you. My name's Keely Craw, and I'm based in Glasgow. And I'm a play therapist, and I'm working in lots of different fields in kinship care, foster adoption services as a play therapist, and a long time ago as an assistant social worker. And it's just lovely just to be able to work alongside Yoni in an area we both feel passionate about in supporting children. No.
Yeah, and we sort of come together to pull together lots of information and ideas for adopters and foster carers that we really hope will be helpful. Um, one of the things I'd like to ask you is if you are watching either on live or on replay, please do click permission for StreamYard so that we can see who's on and let us know that you're listening and watching. Um, right, we've got some questions, Keely, we wanted to talk about from adopters and foster carers who've got some ideas about things that they'd like to know. The first one is, why do you think is it a bad idea to put out a box for your Christmas presents? This is very topical.
Mm.
Um, if you're taking away presents from your child for poor behaviour and make them earn those presents back. And this was something that was posted in an adoption chat and caused quite a lot of conversations, I have to
I can imagine. Yeah. I want to know why that might not be a good idea to
say.
do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose there's quite a few threads to that, isn't there? But maybe one of the best ways to kind of think of it is in terms of maybe like if it was you in a workplace and
Mm,
your employer kind of gave you a reward for doing, or just gave you a reward and then took it away because you did something that they didn't like, and then you had to earn it back again, how would that feel? And I
mm,
think, we probably wouldn't be best pleased with that because it feels, and I think, I guess the other kind of threads out is one, I think also we often just kind of expect kids just to behave all the time, right? But do we as adults?
yeah.
We all have moments in our day where we're not at our best, we're in the car, maybe we get annoyed with somebody, you know, we're not brilliant ourselves all the time. And so it's not fair to expect our children to be that all the time. But I think, so to kind of to give something and to take it away, can be quite upsetting for the children. And I think, especially in the context of children who've been adopted, where there's been so much grief and loss
Mm,
and uncertainty, to kind of keep giving and taking something away can be really quite
mm,
distressing, particularly for them. And also, I think, you know, when some children are faced with a challenge like that and they don't feel like they're going to meet it, they don't feel able that they're going to be able enough to kind of redeem those items back. What it can actually do is
okay.
just create an apathy in them, and they're like, "Why bother? Because I probably won't even get it back anyway." And if you take it away once and they win it back, will you take it away again? So
Mm,
there's a lot of
that's a good point.
uncertainty there with that. So I think, and also especially with Christmas, I think, when I get Christmas presents, it won't be because I behaved well this year. I'll just get it from people I love,
Yeah.
and they're giving it to me because they love me. Right? I mean, I
Mm,
probably get none if it was about behaviour, but So I think it's also about the message there too, isn't it? When we're giving freely and joyfully to people that we love, and not because we've excelled particularly well with our behaviour um, this year. So I think it's those
Yeah,
kind of messages
yeah.
too are really important, and that kind of giving and taking away, using presents as as a stick and a potential carrot, as it was, can kind of give some very mixed messages.
Okay. No, that's really helpful, and it's we do. It's a good idea to think about what would be the equivalent for an adult, because I think sometimes we do treat children very differently than we would another adult,
Mm-hmm.
and not with great justification, or not as a good idea either.
That's right. If you thought about it in the context of like um, an intimate relationship, if one partner was saying to the other, I don't like what you did, so you're not having this Christmas present unless you do X, Y, or Z for me, would be, I mean, this sounds like a bit big to say, but potentially, are we talking then about like coercive control? That like
Mm,
things
mm,
given and taken, you know, based on how someone responds, we wouldn't do that most likely as adults.
mm,
So it's about kind of thinking about that, like you say, Yoni, about is it then okay to kind of do that to a child?
mm. Okay, thank you. That's really helpful. Another question that I think this was an adopter had asked, particularly thinking about those adopters who've got toddlers, perhaps 2 or 3 years old. Um, they were asking when and how should they decide what's the right time to start nursery, because I think they were feeling under a bit of encouragement stroke pressure to take their child who is 3 to go to nursery, but she'd only been with them sort of 3 months, and they felt it was a bit early.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and I guess there's probably not a one size fits all
Mm,
for that. So I think it probably depends on each child, how long they've been in placement um, with you, um, you know, and just how well you kind of feel that they would cope. Um, so I mean, 3 months does feel quite early, especially
mm,
if the children are young and they're just trying to settle with you. Then it might be
yeah.
quite a big thing to go to nursery. You know, Another thing to consider might be when they feel the time is right is maybe a childminder instead of a nursery. So that just kind of takes it back down a little bit. So often childminders just have like about, I think tops, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 children, and it's a
Right.
kind of a home environment again, and maybe that
Mm,
just might just feel like a bit of an easier transition than to go into like a big nursery where there's lots of children and lots of different adults, uh, to kind of interact with. If it's just a childminder, then it's just one adult,
mm,
as long as they have a supporting adult with them too, um, and a small bunch of children, and that might be an easier transition. But I think first you just have to feel, you're getting a sense of this child, and kind of what works well for them, and where the strengths are and where they need lots of encouragement and development. And so I
mm,
would say just kind of judge that yourself, and kind of don't feel kind of pressured into uh,
mm,
doing anything like that just yet. Especially, I think because of the current situation with COVID, children can be going to nursery one day, and then if someone tests positive and they have to shut the nursery down,
mm.
you're off for 2 weeks, and so it can kind of create a lot of inconsistency
Yeah.
for the children
Yeah.
as well.
No, that
So
makes sense.
you might just want to wait until the vaccine's a bit more widespread and things are more stable, so you know that things like nursery being shut down again are less
Mm.
likely. But again, think about that, and then maybe just also explore the the possibility of a childminder as well. So
Okay. Thank you. Um, One of the other questions was about could we recommend good books that would help prepare a carer for adoption or fostering. Um, I know I've got on my website diversityadopt.com. There is a book list which hopefully new applicants would find useful. But I was just going to show people one of the books that I think is quite helpful, which people might be familiar with, which is, oh, get it right, A to Z of Therapeutic Parenting. And it's by Sarah Naish, I think that's how you pronounce her name, who's an adopter and runs therapeutic training and used to run a fostering agency, I believe. So that's a couple of suggestions. I mean, you might not be able to sort of name particular authors, but are there any books that you think are useful for carers generally around play?
In terms of like maybe understanding children and kind of where they're
Mm.
coming from. So, Why Love Matters by Sue Gerhard is a really, I mean, the book came out probably about 14 years ago, but I would say it's a real go-to book for a lot of people now. And she's really just explaining the neuroscience of why love matters and what happens to children when they're not in secure loving environments, what that does to their biochemistry and their brain development. And she does that in a very palatable way. You know, there's lots of big words in there because she's talking about brain chemicals, but it's very easy to manage. I managed it. And then another great book actually that I really like and I recommend a lot is called The Whole Brain Child, and that is by oh gosh, the name just got Tina Bryson Payne. She's the second one. I can't remember the name of it straight out of my head.
Well, we can put it in the comments and people can look it up.
Yeah, The Whole Brain Child. The main doctor's name is just gone right out of my head. That's an excellent book because it's about how to help children develop emotionally. So how you kind of take them in their brain beyond the fear into kind of thinking about how they process stuff emotionally and how you help them to kind of develop. And there's some really interesting parts that apply to all children. But I think some of those the ideas they've got can be really quite pertinent to children who have been removed from home and put into foster placements or placed with an adoptive family, and that can just be really helpful. Just it got some good points in there, and another book that quite a lot of people go to, and I actually don't like the title because it's very kind of dramatic, and it sounds like one of those books that was it A Child Called It or something. Those kind of books where
people write
about their own traumatic experiences, but it's not actually about anything like that when you read it. But it's by Dr. Bruce Perry, and it's called The Boy Who. Oh, it's on my head. The Boy Who Lived Like a Dog.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
I can't remember, but there's lots of different kind of vignettes there about children in different traumatic experiences and how we kind of supported them through that. But there's a lot of learning in that book too.
Right.
Yeah. The Boy Who Lived As a Dog. Sorry, my
no, that's fine. We'll look it up. We'll put them in the comments as well, so people. Yeah, that would be really good.
So
I mean, it's a more general thing, but I know one of the things that sort of puts people off or makes them concerned about fostering or adopting is sort of bringing in a new child into the family. And I just wondered whether you had any comments about how strategies or thoughts about how to sort of prepare maybe birth children or adopted children already established in the family to having a new adopted or fostered sibling.
I mean, I guess they're going to be kind of part of the process that you'd be talking to them early on about um, having someone else come in to join the family. And I guess, a part of this, I guess, is about being working at the child's level. So what's appropriate for that child? But I would say it'd be kind of partly allowing the child to be kind of part of that process where they can. Obviously, there's some technical bits sometimes that maybe they
Mm,
don't need to be privy to. But I think it's just about kind of building that up in the same way that, like, um, someone who's biologically going to have a child would prepare a sibling, that you'd be like showing them photos. I mean, you'll get a better photo, but you get like show them scan photos. You'd maybe have books that talk about what it's like to have a brother or a sister and what it's like to be a brother or a sister as well. And kind
mm,
of thinking about how things will be kind of different. That you might have to share things. You know, you might have to share a room. But there's other positives too. That go alongside that. And so I think it's just kind of just allowing them to be part of the process, and if they've got any questions, just to try and be as kind of as open and transparent about that as you can. Um, but done in a child appropriate way, I think can be really
mm,
useful. If you've got photos, that can be really useful. And likewise, when it gets to an appropriate level, for the child who's going to come into your family, to start being able to kind of learn more about their new brothers and sisters, it can be really useful for them too. So, but Yoni, you probably have a bit more experience than
mm. Well, it feels like quite a long time ago.
Mhm,
But I know it was one of the things that I think we struggled with quite a lot in terms of my partner had two birth children who were both in their teens when we adopted our oldest adopted child, and I don't think we got it right. In all honesty, in terms of knowing how to prepare them and knowing how important it was to prepare, particularly Evelyn's youngest child, who was her position was somewhat usurped, really.
mhm,
Um, and I think one of the biggest things with hindsight is that we could have made sort of talked to them a lot more about it. I think because she was in her mid-teens, we thought that actually it wouldn't have that much of an impact.
mhm,
Um, and I think the assessing agency, sort of reinforced that as well. And I think probably now, if we were going through that situation, we would have been told very different,
mhm,
given different messages. But yeah, it caused quite a lot of challenges
mhm,
later on, for them to try and find their own place in the family.
mhm. And of course,
Yeah.
children in like that kind of age, that kind of mid-teenage age, are going through what's called an attachment crisis. So children do that when they kind of hit about 3 or 4 years of age. So, and actually, it's
Mm,
that kind of time where they've lived in this kind of like family bubble.
mm,
And the world starts to expand a little. Maybe they do start going to nursery, but they're looking more outwardly towards like other friends. Um,
mm,
but they always want to know that you're there. And it's the same with
mm.
teenagers. Of course, you know nothing. Um,
Yeah,
and it's all about the peers. But at the end of the day, they want to know that they've got somewhere safe to come home to with full cupboards.
yeah,
So
yeah,
they want to kind of, although they kind of think, you know nothing and you're a complete embarrassment at that age, which
yeah.
I'm sure I will be to my children. I am now, so definitely when they're teenagers. Um, but they still actually do want to know that you're there. You still have to be that
Mm,
kind of anchor. And I guess hindsight's a beautiful thing, isn't it? But I guess
isn't
when
it
new
just?
children come on board, even when the other children are teenagers, it can make them feel a bit like they've lost their kind of position, because new children, especially when they're very young, they need a lot of attention.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, and it's hard to kind of
yeah.
adjust to not having as much attention as you were used to. So,
Mm. No, I think that's absolutely right, and I suppose that really makes is part of the reason why I'm so passionate about helping other people learn from my mistakes, because I don't think you ever get it right. I mean, parenting is sort of doing the least but worst options, and trying to go into it with as much enthusiasm and humour and
mhm,
affection as you can, but you're not going to always get it right. And I think particularly the whole process of becoming assessed or being assessed makes you think that actually there is a right answer and a wrong answer, and you can go
mhm,
down the right road or the wrong road, and actually sometimes it's just a matter of almost trial and error,
mhm.
um, just testing things out. And I don't think they tell you that in the books, so that's
I
why.
don't think there's any book, any any parenting book be like biological foster. I just think
That's true.
I'm not sure there's a book that ever can truly kind of explain what any kind of parenting is like. Um, there might be
No.
some kind of common themes and some things that are a good idea, like trying to have a bedtime routine or feeding the
Mm,
children. Some things are excellent ideas, but how it children have different temperaments, you have different temperaments, everyone has different family setups and
mm,
ideas and philosophies, and you know, flow in the mix, things like sleep deprivation, they all
mm,
kind of really impact on the decisions we make. And every family has its own dynamics, and everyone just works with that and tries to find a way that works for them.
mm, mm. No, I think that's right, and it, it's too much. Sometimes you get so many different options and so many different suggestions. It's quite hard to find your own way, and you just have to trust that what feels right probably
Hmm.
is right.
Yeah.
Um, I thought in the last couple of minutes it might be quite useful to talk about the course that we're doing in January, if that's all right. And interesting what you were saying about routines, because I think it's one of the sort of central tenets of what we're talking about is to have a routine, to have one-to-one time with your child around play. Um, so do you want to just say a little bit about, because you're scoping out some of the areas now, about what people would learn
Hmm.
if they joined us?
Yeah, so Yoni and I are developing an 8-week course. So it's just a module a week. And the focus of that course is around relationship based play. And so there's a teaching element to it. And then later on in the course is it's helping you to start setting up your own play sessions with your own child or children. And so that's where that kind of idea of routine comes in. Making a commitment once or twice, sorry, 2 or 3 times a week for about 20 minutes to have dedicated play sessions with your children, just to kind of really help to strengthen them, because they've come from really difficult experiences, and that can have a real um, deep and long lasting kind of effect on how they kind of perceive themselves and how they perceive themselves in relation to another. Um, so it'll be really helpful for that, but also it's just really great to gain a lot of skills for yourself that enable you to develop your relationship with your child using play. So quite often we're used to kind of developing that relationship through conversations and chats and just the day to day being together. Um,
Mm,
but this really should take you to another level in terms of developing your relationship, and just give you some really good principles that just kind of help every day with your parenting, but also um, are here to really kind of strengthen your relationship with your child or children too.
Brilliant, thank you. And what we're anticipating as well is that it'll give people an opportunity to have build relationships with other adopters and foster carers, which I think is so important. And I think it's particularly at the moment, it's quite difficult to liaise and link up with other carers and people in that situation in a very meaningful way. So hopefully that will be a sort of another aspect of it too.
Yeah.
So if people are interested, I'll put the details up there, and hopefully, and we'll also put the links to the books that we've suggested in the group as well, which people can have a look at. And by all means, have a look at the book list of suggested books that adopters and foster carers have recommended on my website, which is diversityadopt.com. So it probably only leaves me to say we're going to be offline for a couple of weeks over Christmas, so hope everyone has a brilliant time, a holiday or Christmas if they celebrate it. We're going to be back in the first week in January, second week in January in the new year, and look forward to having further conversations then. So thank you, and bye.
Thanks. Hope you all have a great holiday.
Thanks. Bye bye.